content. You may also want to offer training sessions or a brown bag lunch if it's an internal wiki. I think you also have to become a member of the community yourself. There's really not much room for anonymity in building a wiki. You have to be able to say, I'm in this with you and I will try to figure this out with you. I'd also say try to recruit other internal reviewers, even if you reach out to other departments, like perhaps your tech support department may be able to contribute comments or do some edits in the wiki. I think it's also important to make sure that you do category and template maintenance. And by those two things, I mean that many wiki engines, and there are 97 of them, so I won't necessarily tell you which wiki engine to use. They allow for categories, which is kind of like tagging, but it basically lets you put a page into a particular category. If someone puts a page into a category that you don't think is a fit, you would just change the category and maybe drop a line or an email to the person who changed it and say, here's why I changed it, just wanted to let you know. Because in reality, when you're building a wiki and building a community, it's almost like you need to make sure you treat those people like coworkers. They're not, it's not us versus them. It's very much like, I changed this and here's why, just like you would do with a writer who you work with every day. Definitely keep track of recent changes, and this is a feature of wikis that is really nice. It gives you an ongoing page or an ongoing feed of what pages have changed. And you can watch for category changes, and there's all kinds of detail level that you can watch for changes. But that is one of the biggest changes if you become a writer who's working on a wiki, is just that you always know what has changed. And then the final one that I give as a guideline is this idea of the 99-1 theory. Now, this is the biggest surprise to some people, that you have to expect only small percentages of contributors. And if you have those people, value them very highly. The 99-1 theory says that 9% of your users are going to read your content but will never hit an edit button and will never comment. 9% of the users may contribute time to time, and only 1% of users will actually add content, edit content, do a lot of contributions. And if you study this on the MSDN wiki or the MSDN community, it holds true. They managed to get to about maybe 1 point, I think it's on this page, like, 1.72%. And if you look even at Wikipedia, which is a huge user base and a huge number of people who edit, but half of all those edits are done by less than 1% of the people. And you can study this more. It's like the 1%ers, and on the useit.com site, he very specifically talks about this phenomenon. It's been studied, and it's quite well known. So there's my long wiki slide. Sorry about that. Let's move on to something shorter, which is Twitter. And I don't know if you've heard of Twitter. You probably have by now. It's one of the fastest growing sites. It blew the numbers away in February of this year, where people really started taking notice, and not just the news and not just media. Basically, Twitter lets you write little micro-content updates, and it's 140 characters, not 140 words, and that's all you get. It's kind of interesting because Twitter can have content that you can reuse. I right now have been trying to use Twitter to also update my Facebook status. The other neat thing about Twitter is that all of the content is actually also fed in an RSS feed. So you could actually, if you have the ability, put your Twitter feed and the posts that you update in Twitter as a sidebar on your blog and other areas. So that's kind of another neat thing about the idea of micro-content. I also lump this idea of Twitter along with the idea of presence awareness. Presence applications basically know where you are, and that can help you do in real live meetings with people. If you're at a user conference and you want to meet with like-minded people, this idea of where are you right now can actually be recorded in Twitter. There are other applications like BrightKite that allow you to even use like a GPS system to tell people where you are. So, and Twitter also has a really neat feature called hashtags, and hashtags are basically keywords that you insert into a post, and you put the hash mark in front, the octothorpe. And it's a neat way to allow content to be aggregated around a conversation. A good example of this was the hashtag that we used for STC. If you put pound STC09 in your Twitter post, it would automatically be kind of collected when you went to search.twitter.com and searched for that hashtag. You would find all of the posts from people who would use that hashtag. So it's a really neat kind of new way that people are looking at content in these very small bits. There's another aspect of Twitter that's kind of neat, that's very conversational, and that's the idea that you can direct message people privately. So you don't have to have them in your instant messaging client. You can just directly message them if both of you are following each other on Twitter. And then there's also this idea that if you put the @ in front of a person's Twitter username, you can publicly message them and have conversations that go back and forth that others can read. So this is just a really exciting new thing, and I think that just now technical communicators are starting to figure out how we could work this into user assistance. And Sarah Maddox just this week published a blog post that talks about Twitter as a medium for release notes. And I think it's actually a really brilliant idea. She's using hashtags very effectively. She is linking people back to her release notes, which are online. And it's really enabling this kind of, I guess it's kind of a hybrid between marketing doc and kind of buzz generation, but it's also that she gets to link to something, that's very factual. Now, another area of documentation as conversation that I think is useful is the idea of profiles and online identity. And a lot of you, I'm sure, are familiar with LinkedIn and Facebook. And it basically, I think this is useful, not that you would necessarily, as a technical writer, you probably wouldn't fit into the overall social media strategy that would, have you running the Facebook group for your company, although that's very much a possibility. But it lets you find out more about your users. And I think this is really valuable. Like I was talking about going out to Indeed.com and searching for my product name and finding out what this is very useful for finding out basically task analysis. What is it that users want to do? So again, I did a search for IMUS on LinkedIn, and I was able to find out more about my products and users. And it also helped with the idea of persona names. Persona names let me find out. I was actually able to name some people based on the profiles that I found in LinkedIn. Many people who use my product are database administrators, but there are also people who are just volunteer activists. And so finding names for them really helped me get closer to users, and it's that idea of kind of stalking your users. What are their typical job titles, and what are some of their names? It was very interesting, very eye-opening. Now this next slide basically gets into the heart of what it is I'm talking about, conversation. And conversation has been going back a long way, and I don't think that I need to tell you that blogs and wikis are the only way to do this. Obviously, forums have been around for a long time, and so have email lists. And these two books that I have up now talk about these forms of payment in online communities. And in this book, Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom, he's a science fiction writer, and he invented this term of WUFI. And it was this ephemeral, reputation-based currency. There was no money in this world that he created. It was only your reputation that followed you everywhere. And so what Tara Hunt has done, and I think this book is out now, very recently released, is talked about, what is it that you can bring to a community that allows people to be rewarded for participating. Now, I'm sure that technical writers are moderators in online communities already, very accustomed to the, forum-based conversation. And so you might, just start out by communicating on forums or boards. And this is kind of an asynchronous conversation. there may be a time when you do synchronous conversations with customers or with your coworkers.